My childhood friend Avery Johnson's uncle Oscar committed suicide. Before his death, someone discovered hundreds of unsent love letters in his drawer. Each letter was addressed to me. So, in this second chance at life, when my mother asked if I wanted to marry my childhood friend Avery, I shook my head and resolutely chose to marry his uncle Oscar instead. I harbor a secret: I've been reborn. In my previous life, I chose to marry my childhood sweetheart Avery. However, after our marriage, Avery was frequently absent from home. Later, when I suffered severe bleeding during pregnancy, he abandoned me in my dangerous condition simply because his first love Stella Locke said, "The power's out at my place, and I'm scared." He left without hesitation. Eventually, both my unborn child and I died from the hemorrhage. After my death, Avery didn't shed a single tear. He even complained that my death had disrupted his travel plans with his first love. When I miraculously opened my eyes again, given a second chance, I had returned to the day my mother asked me who I wanted to marry. Amanda Brown, have you really thought this through? You and Avery grew up together. Are you sure you want to marry his uncle Oscar? Faced with my mother's repeated questioning, I consistently answered, yes, I'm sure. Alright, as long as you truly love him, your father and I will start arranging your wedding right away. My mother was even more eager than I was. That very day, she went to ask Oscar about his thoughts. After receiving his affirmative response, she rushed to the wedding planning company to book an outdoor venue. Shortly after booking the wedding venue, Avery called. His voice was filled with impatience. Amanda, have you no shame? You initially forced our elders to arrange our marriage, and now you've gone behind my back and booked a wedding venue? Don't you have any modesty as a woman? Are you that desperate to get married? Amanda, you're desperate. Cheap behavior makes me utterly despise you. I pressed my lips tightly together, pausing briefly before explaining, Avery, I never intended to marry you in this lifetime. The person I want to marry is. But he didn't give me a chance to finish, interrupting me with a cold laugh. Amanda, so you've learned to play hard to get now. Why didn't I see through your true intentions earlier? Even if you plan the wedding perfectly, what difference does it make? I love Stella, and she's the only one I'll ever marry. My heart belongs entirely to Stella. Your pathetic actions only disgust me to my core. With that, he hung up, leaving me to swallow the explanation I wanted to give. Never mind. Soon enough, he'd discover that I wasn't planning to marry him at all. My family and the Johnson family had been close associates for generations, a traditional relationship highly valued in our community. Avery and I grew up in the same residential compound, truly childhood sweethearts who shared everything. After we celebrated Christmas that year, our parents arranged our marriage, following the traditional custom of family-arranged unions. But in my previous life, he suddenly proposed canceling our engagement to marry someone else. I refused to agree, which led to a huge argument. Although I eventually married Avery as I wished, he rarely came home after our wedding. When I finally became pregnant, he moved in with Stella, and I barely saw him except during family gatherings. As my due date approached, the senior family members who traditionally had authority in family matters forced me to return home. However, on the first night back, we had a fierce argument that caused me to hemorrhage severely. I was terrified and begged Avery to take me to the hospital, but one phone call from Stella was enough to make him leave. In the end, both my unborn child and I died. My poor baby never even had a chance to see this world. After my death, Avery didn't even attend my funeral, immediately taking Stella on vacation instead. My parents, heartbroken, fell ill from grief and passed away shortly after. My family's assets ultimately fell into Avery's hands, while he and Stella grew old together, surrounded by children and grandchildren. In my previous life, my decision to marry Avery led to a devastating tragedy, resulting in the loss of both my family and my life. In this life, I absolutely cannot make the same mistake. I must protect those who truly love me. After we finalized the wedding venue, my mother kept urging me to pick out a wedding dress. Oscar Hunter had already selected our wedding rings abroad, designed by one of the most renowned international designers. Since he was negotiating business overseas and couldn't return immediately, he sent me a black card as an apology. I had reserved the latest wedding dress from Christmas, a high-end designer brand, which had just been airshipped this morning. The store assistant called to invite me for a fitting, but as soon as I walked into the bridal shop, I saw Avery sitting in the waiting area. When he looked up and saw me, his brows immediately furrowed tightly. "What are you doing here?" I answered softly, trying on a wedding dress. Perhaps my expression was too calm, as he seemed surprised before scoffing. "Amanda, are there really no other men in this world? Do you absolutely have to marry me?" I stared at this all too familiar face before me, a bitter smile forming at the corner of my lips. I simply couldn't connect this man with the Avery who once carried me on his back when I had stomach pains, desperately running through pouring rain. Ever since Stella appeared, he was no longer the Avery who had carefully protected me. Fortunately, in this life, I finally didn't have to be entangled with him anymore. I looked at him calmly and responded coolly, "Avery, I told you, I'm not going to marry you. You're right, there are other men in this world, and I won't cling to you anymore." With that, I walked straight into the wedding dress display area without giving him another glance. However, before I could get far, Avery suddenly grabbed my wrist with a quick, jerking motion, his tone severe. "Amanda, what exactly are you trying to do?" I struggled to break free, but his grip was too strong. I sighed helplessly. "Avery, what do you want?" I said, "I'll never want to marry you in this lifetime, and I won't bother you anymore." "Isn't that exactly what you want?" He glared at me with a cold smile, You deliberately chose today to try on wedding dresses, and you say you don't want to marry me? He glanced toward the fitting room, his eyes full of love. Stella is the only woman I'll ever love. Give up already. I told my family last night that I'm canceling our engagement. Even if my entire family disagrees, I'm going to marry Stella, no matter the cost. The cost Avery mentioned was simply giving up everything the Johnson family had given him. He had started his own company, which was doing fairly well, but compared to the Johnson family enterprises, it was nothing. I smiled politely and said softly, well, I wish you both happiness. Don't worry, I'm getting married to someone else soon, so our engagement is already void. I gestured for Avery to let go, but he kept staring at me, refusing to release my wrist. Amanda, what game are you playing now? Who else could you possibly marry besides me? My wrist hurt from his grip, bringing tears to my eyes. Just then, Stella walked out. She exclaimed in surprise, Avery, what are you two doing? Avery immediately released my hand and rushed to Stella's side, trying to take her hand. When Stella instinctively pulled away, he quickly understood and softened his tone, saying, I'll go wash my hands thoroughly in the restroom. Wait for me. Stella and I locked eyes, and hers were filled with undisguised contempt and triumph. That's when I noticed she was wearing the wedding dress I had reserved. The store assistant who followed her out called anxiously, Ms. Locke, this dress has already been reserved by someone else. Please look at other styles. We just received several new designs by air this morning. Stella glared at the assistant angrily and said in a harsh tone, my fiancé is the future heir of the Johnson family and is very close with your boss. My fiancé said I can try on whatever I want. He can afford it. Besides, this dress was only reserved, not purchased. Why can't I try it on? She turned to me with malice. Right, Amanda? Even marriages can be called off, let alone a reserved wedding dress. The assistant finally noticed my arrival and was nearly in tears. I'm so sorry, Ms. Brown. This dress just arrived this morning, and I didn't have time to put it away before Ms. Locke tried it on. I didn't want to make things difficult for the assistant, and besides, I no longer wanted a dress someone else had worn. I smiled nonchalantly at the assistant. It's fine. If Ms. Locke likes it, let her have it. You received your store's crown jewel this morning too, right? Take me to see that one. I patted the black card in my bag. Since my future husband was so eager for me to spend his money, I'd indulge him just this once. Avery came out just in time to hear my words. He looked at me coldly. Amanda, can you stop embarrassing yourself? I've said I'm marrying Stella, not you. Why are you making a fool of yourself? And do you even know how much that crown jewel costs? 10 million. How could you possibly afford it? I smiled, took out the black card, and handed it to the assistant. No need to try it on. I'll take it. I turned and left, with Avery's shocked expression and Stella's jealous glare following me.